Okay, this is gonna be like this is the first video that I'm ever just rambling. And maybe it's because I didn't really feel like scripting. And maybe part of it, I'm just gonna see. I'm just gonna listen back to this and see if I like it, and if you guys like it, whatever. There might be more thought out details later, but I I posted an Attack on Titan video maybe I don't know how many months ago now. It was some time ago, and that video, I mean, for my standards, it blew up, right? It just did well, and it has like hundreds of comments under it, and a lot of the people were just really upset because I had a opinion about it where I'm just like, hey, it's not okay in my opinion, right? It's not okay for you to use Attack on Titan to justify or to use it as an example, whatever it may be, for current whatever conflict, insert whatever conflict that's going on in the world right now, right? And a lot of people were upset because they were just like, oh, like art imitates life. And so therefore, this should be used. Like it's okay to use this show, especially with the ending that it had, as far as like Eren starting the rumbling and and just murdering like what like 80% of the world. Um, that it was okay for them to use this, right? Because it's like representing whatever type of struggle with oppressor and the oppressed, right? And so I'm okay with the literature, with the medium of entertainment, anime, whatever, pointing to a bigger problem, right? That I don't care about that, right? But my main problem is, right, and with a lot of people in the comments, I don't think they really recognize this, right? Where when it comes to Attack on Titan's idea of morality, it bases itself as being very subjective from the point of view of the person. Meaning that from all persons around, from all persons that are um, in the show, the reason why they do what they do is because of some horrible reason, right? And I think we can all agree that um, all the circumstances of the characters, like Gabby, Eren, Levi, Mikasa, the Eldians and the John, whatever, right? Like being child soldiers and needing to fight to, invade Paradise in order to get the Founding Titan and stuff like that, right? Like the military pretty much enslaving and oppressing the Eldian people in the Eldian Marleyan internment camps. It's horrible, and they're doing it for whatever type of reason, right? Gabby's reason was to find validation and identity and become a good Eldian in order for her family to achieve, better status in the Marleyan Empire, right? Um, for Eren, right? The reasons why he started the rumbling was to protect his friends. Although I still think him doing the rumbling is stupid. Like if you have the Founding Titan, you literally have other options to, but that's not for this video, right? Um, but with all the characters involved, there's a reason for why they do what they do. And a lot of people, right? Like a lot of people would say, like, oh, like yeah, like that makes sense. Like yes, like the reason why they do what they do isn't because there is like these black and white good and bad guys. It's because everyone in the show, everyone in this Attack on Titan universe, they have reason for what they do, and so therefore there you can't really have good guys and bad guys. It's really just people that are just doing what they're doing from their perspective, and that's great until you try until you try to bring the this fictional medium, right, that's inspired by real events, right, inspired by real events, until you bring it to life and say, hey, this Eren represents this, the rest of the world, Marley represents this, Isayama, the author, he had this in mind when he created the story. And there's a problem with that, because all of the if all of the characters, and if the Attack on Titan fandom is agreeing that all of the characters, their perspective on morality their perspective on what they do, their perspective on right and wrong is subjective to their personal experience, you kind of have to bring that to life if we're taking, this show and applying it to different things in life, right? And so you have a problem because from whatever world conflict that's going on in the world, if Attack on Titan's morality is black and white, therefore representing our reality that isn't necessarily black and white. Excuse me, if Attack on Titan's morality or standard morality isn't necessarily black or white, it's like, gray is for perspective, from perspective, whatever, right? You have to apply that, like by the logic, right? You have to apply that to our world. Because if we believe, right, there are people out there, right, that they believe that the only reason that people do good and bad is because of experience and perspective and environment. And to somewhat, like, I agree, right? I think there are certain environments and stuff that people grow up in or that they're in that they have to survive, right? And they have to do what they got to do. But if this is the case, right, if people's morality, sense of morality, right and wrong, no one can do bad because it's dependent on perspective, then that kind of also applies to our world, right? Meaning that you can't be upset with something happening in the world if evil, good and bad, whatever it is dependent on a person's perspective and experience. That's literally the logical conclusion of Attack on Titan, right? And so when it comes to a lot of different things, right? I'll use slavery. If slavery was dependent on someone's experience, if there's no bad factors and parties involved, then that means that everyone had a justifiable reason for why they committed slavery. I don't agree with that logic, but that's literally the logic of Attack on Titan. Everyone has a purpose or perspective for what they do, and therefore you can't call out their actions as good or bad. And so this standard of morality with Attack on Titan is dangerous and harmful. One, because if you have no standard of morality, like if there's no standard of morality, then anything goes. And this is my first time ever doing this, like off the script, because I think I got a comment on my last Attack on Titan video that really got like 4,500 views or whatever. That's a lot. That's a lot for me because I'm a small YouTuber, whatever, right? Because this person laid out like a whole book about why I can't condemn people, or not condemn, but I can't like critique people using Attack on Titan to justify a certain cause, right? And the ending of the cause. And it really triggered me because I'm like, okay, if I can't do that, and if Attack on Titan's standard of morality is not black and white, there is no objective standard to judge outside of why the standard is wrong, whatever. If everyone's perspective and morality in the show, the character morality and why they do what they do is just from the basis of survival and no one's good or bad, they're just doing what they got to do, then why are we upset about things in the world? Like, why are we triggered? Why are we fighting for different rights? Why are we doing all of these different things that innately people do if a standard of morality is not black and white? Or not necessarily black and white. I don't want to use that language. If there is not an objective standard outside of us to tell us that, hey, this thing is evil, this thing is bad. And so this idea that Attack on Titan presents gives us a problem, because if there is no standard morality, then anything goes. It has to, right? Like, that's just the logical conclusion. And if you're listening to this, you might say like, no, that's not what I think, right? Like anything can't just go. Like if someone breaks into your house, you're going to believe that that's wrong. no matter where you are, right? Like if someone breaks into your house, if someone steals from you, if someone innocently kills somebody for some of their stuff, you're going to realize, you're going to say to yourself, "Yo, this is wrong," and you're going to go report them to the police, right? And so, and also say, I understand this idea of survival. Like I understand that sometimes people do what they got to do in order for them to eat, for them to live. It's kill to be killed, right? But does that mean that there is not a standard outside of us or objective standard to critique and condemn that type of idea, right? Um, and so, two, right? If one, if there's no objective standard, there's no one that can tell us that what we're doing is wrong, right? If there's no objective standard, right, above, like, in which can apply to the show because, and it's a fictional show, but it also applies to our reality because literally people think this way. If there's no objective standard outside of reality, then anything goes. That means that what Eren did, as far as killing 80% of the world, did not matter.
Okay, so I had to do a little bit of editing, and that's okay. We're here, right? But even to further the point, right, to kind of bring this logic like to its like fullness, right? If Attack on Titan's morality is subjective, if what they did is because people are doing it for survival, they're doing it because they had no choice, whatever, then the perspective of Marley and them invading Paradise Island and oppressing the Eldians, whatever, and gaining more power, like they aren't at fault either, right? Like if no one's bad, no one's good. If the perspective of good and evil is based on experience and for survival, then like Marley was just doing what they had to do to survive, right?
Whatever historical event you want to apply, insert into our real life, whatever they did not matter because it was dependent on their survival. Most likely, someone listening to this probably going to get upset. That's okay because I'm trying to draw out the logic to show that it's kind of stupid, right? So, like, two, if if there is no right and wrong, right? If right and wrong is dependent on your experience, if it's just dependent on how you feel about something in that moment or whatever, yeah, why are you upset about certain things, right? Like if we talk about any of the past, like I won't mention them because I really don't. I care more about, not that I don't care, but I care about flushing this logic out and showing people that like how they're thinking is really kind of crazy. Um, if if this is our reality, then why do you care about certain issues happening in the world? And if you just say, right, like, oh, because like I care for my fellow human and I want the world to be a better place. Why do you want the world to be a better place and why do you care for your fellow human? Right? Because like for me, like if there's no objective standard outside of me to tell me that I should love you or treat you well, why does what you think about your fellow human and the world and the issues of the world actually matter? Right? Like, do you guys see what I'm saying? Like, you have to draw to this logical conclusion that if there is no objective standard outside of you telling you why you should live the way you live or think the way you think or whatever, you have a problem because it doesn't matter, right? Like it essentially doesn't matter, right? So as a Christian person, and this is gonna be a short video because I feel like I really should just flesh out this a little bit more. These are just raw thoughts that I don't know how this is gonna do on the interwebs or whatever. But as a Christian person, and a lot of people were like, because like, and I'll just take it back to the Attack on Titan video. You could go watch it. That has hundreds of comments or whatever. That people were like, oh, like why, like you need to choose a side, right? You need to agree with Eren's actions, and they were equating it to like my ancestors and doing what they did, right? And for me, like I had to think about it because I'm like, okay, cool, like you kind of have a point, but what was the reason, right, that they did what they did is because they didn't just do it because there was just like this morally gray, this like subjective experience standard dependent on like from Attack on Titan, right? Like they did it like abolitionists, slaveholders. I just got done reading Frederick Douglass's book, his self narration about his life of a slave, right? And in that book, the reason that he was able to talk about slavery and the ills of slavery and denounce slavery and critique Southern slaveholders was because he appealed to a higher standard, that i.e. that was God. Like Frederick Douglass, black, abolitionist, right? Like was a Christian, right? And so he appealed to a higher standard, critiquing the Christianity of America because of his belief in God, because of his belief in the higher standard that God holds every man to, every human being to, no matter who you are on the planet, right? And so I like the reason why like slavery was bad, was wrong. The reason why like that wasn't just like abolitionists and things formed in the North to fight against the Southerners in the South who were trying to hold on to slavery and treat black people as cattle and stuff like that, right? The reason was because human beings are made in the image of God, right? The reason was because human beings did not deserve to be uh, in chains and slavery. And you know where they got that standard from? You know where they got that idea from? Scripture, right? This is a side note. I love like when people are like, oh, like Christianity is a white man's religion, therefore Christianity is about holding slaves and I'm like, no, no, most because you probably didn't read all of the scripture, right? You're not reading the whole Bible, the context of the Bible, right? But like Christianity promotes freedom, right? Christianity, like there's literally laws again, like especially for Israel when God was forming Israel as a nation, there was laws against people man stealing, and that was punishable by death. And so the idea that all men are created equal, that all men are made in the image of God, right? Abolitionist people got this from the Christian worldview, not from this fickle, like not fickle, not from this idea that people were just humans and that because we're humans that nothing binds us together, whatever we're made of, whatever it may be, is like, oh, we should love each other, therefore we should try to make the world a better place and fight against injustices in the world. No, every single every single movement, every single major movement, every single concern, every concern that you have about the world's ills, all comes from a standard that you may or may not hold to. But the reality is, the way you live out your life shows that you believe in a higher standard, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you think. What doesn't matter what you think about, right? You cannot stand on being upset about something if your standard is just like, eh, like like experience, perspective, you know, yeah, that's it. Like that's why we should know that like there is a higher standard that we should hold to, that we have to hold to if we care about anything in the world. And so I think when it comes to Attack on Titan's perspective morality, it gives a pass on these characters, and especially for Eren fanboys to be like, oh, he just did what he had to do. Whereas it's like, there definitely was there definitely was a better way to go about it, but like, no, like if you're not holding on to something, then what you think about, how you're going about it, what you care about, what breaks your heart doesn't necessarily matter if you're not holding on to something better. That's why I think the Christian worldview is better. The Christian worldview provides a standard so that we can hold to, that shows us like, hey, all men, all people are created in the image of God. Therefore, you should not hate your brother, right? You should not murder people. You should not kill people. You should not steal from people. You should not lie from people. Why? Because people are made in the image of God. If that's not the belief, right, then none of what we think about, like war, illness, sickness, that does not matter if there is no standard. Um, so I don't know, like I just felt like I had to rant because like Attack on Titan's like idea of morality and people like trying to like justify it and whatever and use it for certain world events that I won't name because like I don't that's I would I'm never making a video like that ever again. It's just weird, bro, because like you literally like it like I feel like you can't just take this and be like, yeah, this is what this is. And also like realizing how some of the world's events are unfolding right now. It's who who's Aaron? Who's Marley? Like, what are we talking about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, bro. But man, I'm gonna look over this and see if I actually want to post this because it's literally just me rambling and having a problem with Attack on Titan's worldview. Um, I might just do. Nah, I might just leave this up. I'm just gonna show you like what my rambling thoughts are because like I'm this is literally just unprocessed, triggered from a comment that I got maybe like a few days ago. Um, there's gonna be a more polished video coming out soon about this, but this is just I'm just gonna upload this because I want us to like to get the conversation started because like if you live your life as if morality and the standard of morality or whatever is just like based on perspective, you kind of have to wrestle with that because like if someone comes up and punches you in the face and you get upset about it, I think that person has the right to look at you and be like, why are you upset? Like I just punched you in the face, like I just because I wanted to, right? There's no standard of morality that's telling you, right, if you're holding on to this Attack on Titan worldview, that what that person did was wrong. So I don't know, man. I just gonna I'm gonna get the conversation started, and we're gonna see what happens. I'm gonna see how this does. This is 20 minutes of me rambling about just how I feel about Attack on Titan sometimes. Because like I feel like Attack on Titan is you can continue to talk about it and continue to work it out and continue to like talk about the philosophy, like right. And I also think right like I feel like I struggle, especially being I'm a Christian like person making content on this platform, right? And my whole channel is about taking anime and relating it into and how I see themes about in certain anime and relating them to Jesus, right? Um, I have a problem when like people like really try to like downplay like the idea thought of religion and spirituality in these types of shows because like you literally like I feel like you can't separate those things. Like obviously the work is fictional, but the fictional work is coming from a real life person who has ideas, that has thoughts, that's probably doing research in the history. Like literally like Isayama's whole show based off European history, right? Like in a mix of that, right? I feel like when people try to take like these things out of it, it's being like, oh, like just this is for great entertainment, as if this literally didn't spark like a whole world, debate about Aaron's actions, which I think is fine. I think it's healthy critique and stuff, but also like people using this stuff to just justify how they think about certain things. Like I don't think that I don't think, yeah, I don't think people really think these things through, especially considering the ending of Attack on Titan. And it's like, oh, bet, like you want to use Attack on Titan, you want to use Eren to like, prop up your position on TikTok or whatever. And yet we see things happening in real life that kind of like, not saying that they allude to those events like correlating, but I'm just like, none of us want that. And so if we do not want the final, outcome or whatever, don't use Aaron. don't use Aaron to don't use Aaron to talk about why you think certain things is okay, right? Especially because things aren't looking too great. Um, so yeah. Yeah, so those are my thoughts, man. I hope you enjoy this 20-minute rant on me just trying to figure out this idea of Attack on Titan and how people think. Um, yeah, so I will catch you guys later.
Okay, I'm not actually going to look over anything because I want all smoke, right? But to add, I believe that the Christian worldview is better when it comes to topics like all like what we're talking about is because that Jesus, God, promises that one day all evil, all oppression, all the things that are wrong with this world, one day they will be addressed, right? And they've already been addressed with the coming of Jesus, right? Jesus has come, he has put on flesh, God in the flesh has come down to bear our burdens, to walk with us, to to sympathize with our weaknesses. So that way we can come to him and he knows what we're going through, right? Jesus, like God, we have this God that entered into our world not to just leave it to itself, but to save it, right? John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son that whoever should believe in him should not perish but have everlasting life. But one day, with the ills that are wrong, with the ills of the world, with how sinful the world is, how sinful you and I are, Jesus, one, has come to redeem those things. And one day he's coming back to address all evil. Like we think that, like people think that with Christianity that oh, if like God's just overlooking all these evils and injustices, and if you just say a prayer then you're getting forgiven, right? The fact is, you and I stand condemned before a holy God. Everyone has fallen short of God's glory. And therefore, all of us, no matter who you are deserving of separation. But in God's love and mercy, he came down in human flesh as Jesus to take upon our sin and God's wrath on himself so that you and I could not be separated from holy God and not experience his justice. People that do wrong, and I have to say, Jesus is coming back, right? Jesus is coming back, and he's going to deal with the world and its evils, right? Like Jesus, like I think it's worth noting, and most people don't really understand this about Christianity, is that you have two options, right? Either you allow God himself to absorb your sin and suffer for and take on your plea, right? And take on your burden, or you take it on yourself, right? All the things that you've ever done in the world, good, bad, whatever they may be, God is going to address them. God is all just, right? God is a God of justice, and therefore nothing is going to get past him, no matter how we think that things are going. Like if we think that people are getting away with stuff, God is going to address it at the end of the day, right? It may be it may be now, it may be when he come back, but God will address it. And so therefore, having this idea of subjective morality that everyone is everyone, the reason why they do what they do is because they, from experience or whatever, it isn't because of people's experience, it's because people are sinful, right? Like in the Christian world, like people are sinful, like people are messed up, people are broken because that's what happened to us when we walked away from God. But Jesus promises to deal with that, to renew it, to redeem it. And that's why hoping in Jesus, hoping in Christ is the best option for this world. Honestly, it's the only option for this world, right? But that's all. I'm sure there's more I could say, but I wanted all smoke, so we'll see what happens. This is the end of the video. Cool.